Hi boys and girls. Before we actually study the French and Indian War, I think it's important for us to look at this map of America and understand some key or important ideas relating to the map. And what I mean by that is by which country has colonized which area, um, and then also by understanding um, more in detail about this area called the Ohio River Valley. Let's start with understanding or looking at a scoreboard here of who has what area, um, or who has colonized, you know, what place or places in America. As you can see, England has roughly 10, colonies or areas around this time. Spain has 4 large areas over here, and England's, as you know from looking and reviewing the previous lesson, are on the northeast and the east coast. These is roughly 10 areas, 10 to 11. They're going to transform into 13 colonies eventually, but using this map here, we can see England has about 10 areas stretching from Maine all the way to Georgia. France, we'll get to in a moment, but Spain, you can see across the southwest and the southern part of America, really 4 large areas. What is now Texas, what is now Florida, Southern California, and what is now New Mexico and Arizona. So they have a large or a vast area of land as well. So rather than looking at this as a scoreboard of 10, 4, and now 11, we can also look at it in terms of how much land each country has colonized or acquired. And you can see Spain, they have a lot more territories and areas than they did in the previous map that you looked at from the previous lesson. Spain has been able to establish trading posts on this Mississippi River, and as a result, they have actually been able to explore westward, something that the English did not do. The English really never crossed the Mississippi. The English never really crossed what is now Ohio, or Indiana at least. But the French were able to cross this area of the Mississippi River and then get into areas even as far northwest as Washington, Montana, and even areas where Colorado and Wyoming are today. The French were able to acquire, through exploration and trading, a lot of this land. So you can see now a difference between this map and the previous map. England and Spain, their colonial advancements have pretty much stayed the same, with Spain being in the south and the southwest, even the southeast and Florida, England being in the north and northeast. Spain, they started with the 2 settlements of Detroit and New Orleans, and they explored the Mississippi River Valley. But now look at this. Spain has a lot of this land over here. And as far as who has the most, it's really hard to tell. They all look like they would have equal amounts, just in different areas. But there's going to be great conflict, which we're going to study at our next social studies session. And that conflict's going to take place in this area, and I'm going to focus in on it with this circle. This is called the Ohio River Valley, and I want you to remember that phrase only because it's going to allow us to study the French and Indian War with a little bit more detail. This Ohio River Valley is going to be disputed and fought for. The English, as you can see, they're pretty close and almost encountering and approaching it, claim that it's their land. However, the French also believe that it's their land. As you can see, the French have establishments in Michigan, which is very close and near to the Ohio River Valley, and they have got settlement trading posts along the Mississippi River Valley, which is close to the Ohio River Valley. But so do the English. The English also have areas and colonies that are close to the Ohio River Valley, such as Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York. So really, whose land and whose territory is this Ohio River Valley? It's going to cause great conflict, and it's going to start a war. And that war will be known. One of the names for the war is the French and Indian War. Another name for it is the 7 Years' War. One thing that is not really referred to in your text that you use in social studies class is that this 7 Years' War, the French and Indian War, it was a war that originally started in Europe, and it's kind of spilt over into America, and England and France. They took out their conflict and tension that they had for one another, and their disputes into this area now. So they're both England and France. They're now disputing and arguing over whose territory this Ohio River Valley is. You'll get a great look at some maps in a few moments, and then in class we'll look at some maps. I also want you to study some key figures in this war, and I also want you to learn why it's called the French and Indian War. The phrase the French and Indian War, a lot of kids mistakenly believe that it was a war between the French and the Indians, so French versus Native Americans. It wasn't such. The war is named, the English named this war the French and Indian War, and it's because the English, or the British, they fought the French, and they fought the French allies, who were certain Native American groups. I'll show you some visuals in a second. So really this war began as England versus the French and the Indians, or Native Americans, and it has nothing to do with the French fighting the Indians. It's not the French versus the Indians, as the name would imply, French and Indian War, but really instead it's the British, or the English, fighting the French and their Native American allies. I want you to take a look at this. This is something interesting we'll look at in class. This is stuff we haven't seen yet. Do you recognize any of these figures? You may or may not. You may recognize this 31-year-old man from England. I won't say who he is yet. You may recognize this 25-year-old man from England. I'll give you a hint. Eventually these two are going to fight with one another. They're on the same English side during this French and Indian conflict, or sorry, this conflict between England and France. Currently this man and this man are on the same side as England fights France, but later, just a few years from this conflict, these two men are going to be on opposite sides and fighting each other. These are going to be key figures as well, and as you see, if we take a closer look at the map, now you see who they are. This was a war between the English and the French, but the French, they had Native American allies. The French, the Algonquin Native Americans, and the Lenape Native Americans fought against the British, the Iroquois Native Americans, and the Cherokee Native Americans. So if we just draw a line like this, separating this part, you can see who this war was really who really fought in this war, and who it was against who. It was the French and the Algonquin and the Lenape fighting against the British, the Iroquois, and the Cherokee. First it began as just the British, or the English, fighting the French and the Algonquin. Then the British got Native Americans themselves to help them fight, and it turned into the British and the Iroquois versus the French and the Algonquin. And then Native American sides started taking sides, and Native Americans decided who to join. The Lenape joined the French, the Cherokee joined the English. As you can see, the Algonquin joined the French, and the Iroquois joined the English. But really, this was a war of England versus France, and it was all over this area called the Ohio River Valley. You'll learn specifics and details about the war as you read more in the text, and as we study some more of the text resources. I have a primary resource which is a speech from one of the Native American chief leaders to the English after the war. I want to show you this map as well. Take a look at the impact of the war. You can see all this French territory before the war, pre-war boundaries, 1754. French territory is very large, and it stretches. Of course it stretches into Canada, as we studied, and it's in this Great Lakes region, this Ohio River Valley region, which the French claim is theirs. But after the war, look what happens. You don't see much French land. In fact, you only see French land in the Caribbean here, where Haiti is currently today. And you see a lot of British territory taking up the map as a result of their winning this conflict. But we'll study the actual conflict in class. But just, if there's a few key points you remember from this video lesson, remember this war was between England and France. It goes by the name the 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War, and they were fighting over this valley, this river valley, the Ohio River Valley, and that comprises of or includes territories at the time of where Ohio, Indiana are today, Kentucky, even parts of Illinois, the Great Lakes region. Um, it looks, according to this map, that the French really had that territory, that Ohio River Valley, but of course the British claimed it was theirs, and that's what this war was over. Who had whose land this was. So we'll study that in class at our next social studies session. Until then, take care. Bye.